Greetings, ladies and gents, and welcome to today's edition of Tales from Outer Space, where I take stories from across the internet and read them for your entertainment. This particular story is called They Did What with Accountants and Trebuchet? Written by FarmWitch4275. I peered over the strong stone walls, still amazed at how stupid these pirates were. They let us go, pillaging the meager supplies of the small outpost on the outskirts of the Terran Imperial space. I could see them tossing random scraps into the air and gnawing through the local meager supplies with ravenous abandon. I squealed as I was noticed and ducked my eye stalks behind the stone walls mere seconds before I heard the impact of a laser round hitting the stone wall. I grumbled and crawled along the ground towards the stairs and walked down into the courtyard. I was amazed at how sturdy this thing was, and now I wonder why the hell they built it. I approached one of the humans, a male named Jerry. "Human Jerry, question for you," I said, keeping my voice low.
"Yeah, and it's Jerry, not human Jerry or anything. We keep it simple around here, but yes, your question,"
he replied, seemingly tired.
"I see. Why are we in a large concrete and rebar medieval castle, and why is this even here in the first place?"
I asked, looking at the rather fetching faux stonework. It was clearly concrete, and had been chiseled and finished to look like real stones.
"Renaissance festival a few years back. Go big or go home. That's the rule around here. We were holding a full-scale festival with a whole crew from around town and even some people from the garrison. We figured we'd do it right. Was supposed to dismantle this thing years ago, but procrastination sometimes saves lives, as has been demonstrated. The dolls will keep them out, and moat will dissuade them from trying anything else. Besides, they seem a bit busy," he replied with a shrug, as we heard a growling fight from over the valley. Reginald, the site foreman, appeared from inside the castle and approached us. "Hey man, found anything useful?" The basement was used for storage, and it hasn't been maintained. Guns and a few boxes of ammo, but soaked, washed out, or rusted. A few guns that are useful, like bolt actions. We've got a few hundred rounds, but it's just a Springfield ammo. Won't do much against the Rathani armor. Aside from that, the old Trebuchet is still here, but disassembled. Angela's still working through what's left in the armory and basement. Good news is, there's some amber wine in there, so if the shit hits the fan, we can get drunk." Jerry replied again, shrugging like he had already lost hope. Maybe he was bored waiting. I had no idea.
"At least we have something. Can take some pot shots at vulnerable targets. The good news is that they have the beer supply. It isn't potent for us, but they'll be drunk on their asses soon. We could use the chance to slip by and get to the comp station,"
Reginald said, pacing with rage.
"Can't do that, sir. Comp station blew. First thing they took out on the way in. We'll need to repair, and we don't have the time. Not with the damage I saw on the way in. And with their ship in orbit jamming anyway, we're stuck here until they get bored and leave,"
Jerry replied, still bored and all hopeless. "Damn it, let's just hope they get bored and drunk, and then we can bribe them with the amber ale if we need to. Get them more drunk," Reginald let out an exhausted sigh.
"They will take the amber wine of my dead body,"
an angry voice from the wall yelled. I looked up to see Veronica, one of the females carrying a very old-looking rifle in her hands, surrounded by boxes of ammunition, some of which were glistening with water. She had used various analog camera lenses to fashion a makeshift rifle scope, wrapping it in duct tape and securing it atop the barrel. "Looks like they're getting their party on. We got about half an hour before they run out of beer. I don't think there's enough beer there for all of them, though. I count at least 3 dozen, maybe more," she said, peering at them through the scope. Another female appeared, Angela. A procurement officer of sorts walked up to us. Nothing of value besides old ammo that's too dangerous to use and old guns with iron sights. "There's a big box there. I need help lifting up to see what's in it. Jerry, a hand, please?" she asked politely. Jerry nodded and followed her. "That doesn't improve our odds," Reginald said, and moved towards the odd wooden construct in the courtyard. I followed, not knowing what else to do, and inspected the odd contraption. It was a mixture of metal and wood, heavy, hefty, large in size, and a rounded base built into the makeshift turntable. It had one very long arm attached to a heavy pulley system of some kind, with one long pole mounted in the middle with a long rope or basket mechanism. One side of the arm was fitted with a box of heavy rocks.
"What is this? A hastily assembled service crane of some description?" I asked.
"It's a trebuchet. It was a piece of siege equipment back in the day. This one, however, is one of the dangerous ones, the optimized ones. The ones where modern engineers got too bored and decided it needed to fling more things in a more flingy fashion. Unusual in its present state, no ammunition worth using, and nothing of value gained by flinging rocks at the Rithani. Takes too long to load, and even if you got lucky, it would only piss them off, Reginald said, giving the machine a pat. Seems to be still fully functional, though.
Optimized how exactly?
I asked, inspecting the device. Wood, metal, reinforced joints, properly lubricated joints, precisely controlled weight calibration. In essence, a bunch of very bored, very clever people turned a medieval siege weapon into a piece of equipment that could rival modern artillery, if given the right ammunition. Ah, there. I know who built it. Julius, from accounting. He puts his signature on everything. He pointed to a metal plate with a hastily engraved name on it.
An accountant built this,
I yelled in shock. Well, yeah, but a very bored accountant, and not just an accountant. Looks like it was a group of Project Wait. I remember why we made it. Pumpkin War. There was a makeshift wooden castle over that hill back there, and we used the pumpkins as ammunition. God, I remember how much fun that was. Cleanup sucked, though. So much squash everywhere, Reginald said as he gained a rather peculiar, many-distant stare. We were both startled out of our conversation by the hurling of expletives and the sound of a gunshot ringing out. My amber wine! Mine! Nobody touches my stash! Veronica yelled angrily. I quickly walked up the stairs and saw that the single Rithani had drunkenly stumbled towards the castle and received a bullet to the eye for his troubles. Veronica was struggling with the weapon, though. A lack of maintenance and water damage meant that it was not holding up well. It wouldn't explode in her face, but it was not easy to work with, and she strained as she pulled the bolt back to rack another round. These guns aren't going to last, and I generally don't feel like engaging at close range. Any ideas, boss? She asked, waiting for another target.
If we had, maybe it would work, but no, damn it.
If I could somehow sneak off and reach the comm station or the garrison, I could send out a distress signal. Where is the Rithani ship, though? They always come here in those overcrowded rust buckets, Reginald said to himself, pacing all the while.
What exactly is a Rithani, and should I be concerned beyond our present circumstances?
I asked, as I slowly crawled my way down into the courtyard. Rithani are a pile of useless rat trash that are basically pirates, slavers, cannibals, and monsters. They're a mindless warrior cult species that respect only strength of arms. They'll stab you in the back if they fail to stab you in the face, while stabbing you in everything else. We've tried talking to them on the other occasions. It always ends in violence. Typical warrior caste scum. So don't try to talk to them. They will shoot you in the face, Veronica barked in response. Angela appeared a few moments later, and her face showed an expression of concerned terror. Hi, boss. I'm going to crawl into the corner and cry now. I dropped a crate. Bye. She hastily gabbled and disappeared into one of the tower battlements. Reginald and I shared a concerned glance and headed towards the basement to find out what was going on. The floor was covered in large puddles of stagnant, but not foul-smelling water. Most of the water damage was concentrated on some boxes in the corner. Jerry was hyperventilating, looking at a box of spilled metal balls on the floor coming out of a hefty-looking crate. God damn it! I hate that. Why that crate? Of all crates, why that one? He bellowed. What? What? Just a fireworks crate that got out of hand. Sorry. I recognized one of the booms in the box and panicked when it dropped. Oh, shake it off, Jesus. How the hell did they manage to get Peruvian shock rocket past customs? I'll never know. Shaking his hands and jumping in place in the small puddle of water at his feet. Reginald rolled his eyes. God, the paperwork from this is going to be miserable. Reginald went silent as he reached out and removed the cover of one of the crates. Is that a military hardware crate full of thermochargers? He asked. Jerry quickly snapped his attention and joined him. Indeed, there was a military crate, full of small metal orbs with odd metal attachments. Yes, those are thermochargers. Garrison must have forgotten to haul them out after they moved on to Fort Parker.
Are they safe, or should we be backing up slowly? Reginald asked.
Jerry took a closer look. We should be fine. If I remember correctly, they're okay until you pull the pins, he replied.
What is a thermocharge exactly? I asked.
A thermocharge is a portable explosive device that carries a highly flammable mixture of highly toxic, highly flammable materials that, when detonated, coats anything it touches in a cozy blanket of 2,000-degree fire. It's like combining white phosphorus, napalm, and thermite all into one small, highly illegal package. Very dangerous, Reginald said.
What kind of idiot stole something like that in a place like this? I yelled angrily.
The kind that's in a hurry, irresponsible, or just didn't care, which explains why it's here. The paperwork alone is going to be a nightmare. Wait. The two humans stopped mid-sentence, then glared at each other. They both yelled, "Yes!" And with more speed and agility than I knew they had, they grabbed the box of fireworks and hauled it upstairs, followed by a military crate containing deadly grenades. I followed, unsure of what to do, as they carried the heavy crate to the Trebuchet. I watched, fascinated, as they used their Deathworld strength to have the strange device off its hinges and turn it to face the Rithani. I wanted nothing to do with those things, and retreated to the top of the wall near Veronica to watch her take a Rithani's face off with another bullet. I watched from my perch as they loaded the weapon. They both looked at each other and spoke something about pumpkins, arguing about the weight differences of it, before hauling out their mobile devices to start doing what they sounded like math. I watched, bewildered and terrified, as they did what I was hoping they would not. Jerry was using some strange wiring mess from a nearby defunct circuit board, very, very carefully doing something to the arming mechanisms. Reginald was checking the mechanisms and sticking the fancy-looking rocket thing on the ground.
What are they even doing?
I asked Veronica as she managed to load another bullet. Looks like they're loading those ball things into the Trebuchet. I don't know if that will help. Just leave them alone. I'm sure they at least pretend to know what they're doing. Mostly, she remarked with a shrug and aimed for another kill.
Crazy humans. Why did I accept this position in the first place? I asked.
Full medical insurance coverage on a backwater planet with no taxes and no government oversight, Veronica said.
That is correct, yes. I had no idea I would be paying taxes in the form of pirate raids, though, I replied coldly.
That's life. Rithani are easy when the Force is after them. If I had my pulse rifle, this wouldn't be a problem, but no. I just got an old Springfield rifle from some idiot's forgotten old fake crap collection. Better than nothing, she replied, aiming at the Rithani who was drunkenly waving his las pistol around. I shrugged and saw Reginald and Jerry concentrating with malicious intent. Angela crawled out from her hiding spot and took a spare rifle, struggling to load it before peering over the edge. Okay, panic attack over. What are the schmucks doing?
Loading the trebuchet with turbochargers to throw at the Rithani position, I think.
Both women squealed in shock at the mention of it, and I finally snapped to reality and realized what was actually going on.
Wait, hold on a second.
Fire up your ass, rent-in scum! I heard Reginald bellow before the sounds of rapidly coiling rope suddenly filled the air, followed by a massive crack like thunder. I watched, bewildered and mesmerized by the sight of a few dozen balls of metal fly through the air. The two that had managed to perfectly calculate the angle and weight, and the balls of metal flew straight into where the Rithani were drunkenly stumbling about. The balls hit one poor bastard right in the face before the whole mess detonated. In a flash of light, the entire impact zone went up in a huge fireball as the whole area was set on fire. I had to hold back, retching and vomiting at the sound of the sudden screaming and the sight of the Rithani warriors drunkenly stumbling out of his position, covered in fire, as his face melted off his bones. The screaming thankfully stopped quickly as Jerry lit a match and set the odd rockets on fire. My ears burned with the terrifying well that thing made as it sparkled and sputtered before blasting up into a high air. It rose a few hundred feet, then exploded in a fiery ball of purple smoke, followed by the most calamitous boom I'd ever heard. The sound echoed for miles around. The men came up the wall as Veronica put one poor bastard out of his misery with a round to the eye. Celebration followed shortly after. Our celebration was cut short, however, as we heard the distinct whine of a hastily assembled starship engine, and the menacing, spiky form of what I assumed to be a Rithani warship appeared over the hill. "Oh, so that's where they put the ship they came in. That's a Cormorant-class destroyer," Jerry said. "Yeah, I don't think we're going to reload the trebuchet in time," Reginald replied, as he slowly raised his hands in an attempt at surrender. "Well, gents, it's been fun," Angela said, as she raised her rifle to fire back. A loud crack echoed through the valley again as the Rithani warship was struck by starship-grade weaponry on its right side and lurched at the impact. It gave up its pursuit on us and started to rise up at an attempt to escape before again being hit. This time, the hit struck true, and the bolt energy blasted through the other side of its hull. The machine faltered, its engines wound down, and it slowly fell to the ground. Before it could hit, 3 further bolts smashed into it, finishing it off permanently, as it nosedived and smashed straight into the rock. A Terran warship appeared, along with the contingent of other military hardware, trundling along as quickly as surrounded the area. "Well, the plan worked. Told you those rockets or something," Jerry said.
sure as hell like the garrison know that we were here. The boom could probably be heard in space, Reginald said. Hold the hell on here for a moment, please, I bellowed in protest as a Terran warrior appeared in the doorway of the castle. Everyone looked at me. I stood there, blue-faced with rage, my eye stalks twitching at how casual this all was. I have just witnessed a woman with a broken ancient rifle kill 7 heavily armed warriors with unnatural precision. From a woman whose profession can be summarized into the category of logistics technician. And you are telling me that a medieval fortress built of concrete and rebar, a thing that would have taken months to build, was constructed for nothing more than a festival by a bunch of random people with math? Furthermore, you just saw a bunch of accountants use mathematics so precise that they were able to not only construct a deadlier variant of an ancient piece of siege weaponry, they were also able to use a piece of artillery to successfully win a battle with the odds of 40-4. And the stupid rocket whose boom is so miserably loud that it can actually wake the dead, to such an extent that it can be heard above the roar of a starship fleet during maneuvers. So much so that this fleet not only heard that boom, but was able to respond to the threat within less than 3 minutes. Did I about get the situation right? I bellowed angrily. The humans gathered around me, listened to my rant, glanced at each other, shrugged, and then all simply said, "Yeah, pretty much." I slammed my hand into my face, trying to claw myself back from the edge of a tantrum. I know we have only known you humans for a few years, but the situation goes deeper than any of you might consider. I shall be writing a formal, very strongly worded letter to the Imperial Courts about what just happened here, I said. What happened? It was just another wrath attack, nothing we haven't dealt with before. But I shall tell you what happened here, human, I bellowed loudly again, my voice loud enough to be overcome the roar of the shuttle passing overhead. You insane creatures have a knowledge of mathematical theory that lets you use ancient weaponry against modern enemies. You crazy apes are also insane enough to create weapons that spontaneously turn small places into raging infernos in the blink of an eye. You also show devotion to strange things by building a medieval castle for fun. And you seem to have common people, not warriors, capable of incredible feats of accuracy that can use broken replica weapons to kill a force that outclasses you 5-1. That is what is happening, I barked. I stood there and fumed for a few moments. Screw this, I'm calling home. I yelled angrily and barged my way into one of the Terran shuttles and called the nearest Inquisition office to tell them that, in fact, they needed to panic angrily just as much as I was. End of story. I'd quickly like to thank our Tier 5 channel members, Caspar Arnholt, John Creighton, Manatharia, 050, Dragzoon WRE, and Elijah Silvercross. Thank you very much.